Welcome back to the channel. In this video I want to talk to you about an article I found on Gamespot. I will leave it linked in the description. The headline is that the Anthem update will change how loot works, and here's how they're going to do it. This is just talking about loot, and it seems amazing. Just the concept of it seems really good, but I do have my concerns. I've absolutely loved Anthem, tried supporting it, and I was posting videos for it quite often. And it got to the end game and it dropped off incredibly fast. There was a huge lack of content, the community spoke out about the loot a lot and the developers just didn't know what to do. And then they announced they were doing a full-on overhaul of the entire game. And that's where it started to go downhill. This is obviously a start, but with these loot changes they've said that this is still really early days. I mean, we could possibly be waiting at least another 18 months, 2 years for this. And it's just stupid, it's ridiculous. I've said, ever since it was announced that they were overhauling it, I've said it didn't need to be the case. They didn't have to do a full-on overhaul, they just needed to add more content in, fix the loot, fix the bugs. They did well at fixing some of the bugs the game had at launch, but the main concern was the lack of content and how bad the loot was. So rework the loot, add new content in. I think the game would have been in a decent spot right about now. But they decided to take on a whole new approach. They started prototyping stuff, and we're still at the point where the game's just being updated with seasonal content, if that's even still happening. I haven't been on for a while. But all whilst this overhaul is happening, the game's just being fully neglected. So I still have my concerns. I'm not saying this is going to be 100% perfect. After what happened with the game, BioWare have lost a lot of trust from the community. They have a hell of a lot of work to do, but credit has to be given where credit's due, and the 2 screenshots that I'll be showing you do look pretty good. If they do nail this and it comes out, I'm going to say way before the next 2 years, they need to get a shift on, because all the other games coming out, the new generation of consoles, they're leaving themselves, they're treading on thin ice. This has to be absolutely nailed. But it says here that BioWare have revealed a long list of changes coming to Anthem's loot and equipment systems, while gunplay is getting changes too. BioWare continues to update, support and evolve Anthem, the 2019 online looter shooter published by EA. 9 times out of 10, as soon as you hear EA, you know something's going to be up with it. But they posted a new blog post that covers the changes coming to Anthem's loot and equipment systems, and they sound quite significant. They do. The images look like a lot of work has gone into this so far, but it's all work in progress, very early stages of development. And in terms of the loot, they know they fell short in creating a loot system for Anthem that was deep and engaging enough. In response, they recognised it needed to basically start over and build a new system from the ground up. That being put under quotation marks, I hate it when a developer says from the ground up, because you know that 9 times out of 10 that's not the case. I also remember back to all of the trailers and stuff that we got to see before the game come out. They were showing walkers actually walking around, and you had a legendary called the Jara's Wrath, and that was drip fed a stupid amount. That didn't come into the game until months and months after, but there were also a lot of problems within development. The people higher up were apparently not telling the devs what they had to do. Several times I've heard that the EA CEO or something went round to the BioWare studios and they had to go from one day having flying in the game to the next day taking it out and then trying it again and then taking it out. There was a lot of miscommunication, and it was an absolute shambles in the development studio. They also said that one of the missions, I think you have to interact with tombs, you have to do challenges for it, that was put into the game purposely to delay, to lengthen up the campaign, to give it more length, because they didn't have enough missions in the game, but they still launched it anyway for whatever reason. So scrolling down, it says the new loot system aims to respect your time, embrace choice, create a rewarding loot experience, and keep it accessible and immediate among others. In the future, players can expect a higher frequency of loot drops that contain items that are better across the board. Additionally, BioWare is planning to give players the ability to seek out specific loot instead of relying just on RNG. There will be specific quests and specialized vendors that players can engage with to find the loot they want. Additionally, BioWare is shaping the new Anthem loot experience to make the drops feel more exciting and notable, while the developer is adding rare enemies that drop a lot of rare loot at once. The new loot system is also aiming to give players the ability to see and equip the loot right away. Additionally, a new equipment sheet will be added that shows what you have equipped. So these are the two screenshots. I'll show you them because I want to discuss them in full screen after we've gone through the rest of this. So it says here, BioWare is also planning for the new Anthem loot system to scale for the future. The revised loot system will scale when the power cap rises. All of these changes are work in progress and they are subject to change as development continues, so we might not even see it how they're showing it right now. BioWare have said it's still early days and the studio plans to continue to test these changes and experiment with them over the coming months. BioWare is also making changes to Anthem's gunplay. The changes will make the game feel more responsive. They also said, adding that enemies will react to hits near instantly thanks to advancements made to the client side. They are also looking into the role of melee items and builds, and of course being able to spend skill points to unlock new types of equipment and synergies. One of the things they're most excited about is seeing all the awesome new weaponry concepts based on their factions. Finally, players were reminded that these are substantial changes that won't be rolled out immediately. They want to set expectations that there's a lot of work behind each of these and in some cases a rather large tech undertaking. This is not an easy fix and will take time, which is something they've already had a lot of. This new update follows an earlier blog post from May where the developers set expectations about, here's a more detailed breakdown of what's to come, as written by BioWare. It also mentions how the overhaul will take a long time to unfold, so we're looking at possibly over a year, maybe 2 years. I don't know, is it too late for Anthem? I've absolutely loved this fucking game, but my god, they're just not doing anything right at the moment. This overhaul has caused neglect. There is no new content, no loot, no absolutely nothing. I don't even think there's been updates for the game. All because of this overhaul, and I've said from the get-go, it wasn't a good idea. Just add new stuff in, fix the current problems, just make the community happy there and then. Because as I said, there's a new generation of consoles, there's a lot of decent games coming out. I say decent, there's a lot of fantastic looking games coming out. I really hope they do get this spot on, and they do build up a player base, because the player base it's pretty much gone to nothing. It's hit rock bottom. You've just got the hardcore, die-hard fanboys. But moving on to the loot changes. Their quote of respecting our time. They will increase the frequency of loot drops. I don't think that necessarily needed to happen. I think the loot was at a decent spot for the amount it dropped. Like for how often it dropped. I was getting Masterworks, I was getting legendaries. Maybe increase the chance of getting legendary drops. But then, like new guns coming in, different inscriptions, more powerful stuff, just new loot in general would have been a good idea. But the next point is that loot is viable more often. All items are better and more competitive, but there's still a chance of getting something exceptional. That doesn't make a difference. It doesn't need to be competitive loot. You're playing a PvE only game. You just need to be powerful as a player. But moving on, all loot rarities have strategic value throughout progression. They're also going to embrace choice. You can pursue specific loot without relying on randomness alone or RNG. There will be quests, specialized vendors, unique loot tables. Modify your loot, including re-rolling inscriptions and leveling up items. They're going to create a rewarding loot experience. Loot feels exciting and more noticeable when it drops and is celebrated when collected. Rare enemies, aka walking treasure chests, which does sound pretty cool, create exciting moments to get a burst of loot all at once. I'd like to point this out because it's a common problem across all looter shooters. There are bugs in the game that need fixing, but as long as they can keep the bugs to a minimum and just have some maybe visual bugs and stuff in the game, if they just polish what they have designed, then the only problem in these games is not having enough loot. There's not enough variety, there's no diversity in the way you build. Anthem did okay with it, but you obviously had to rely on legendaries because they were the most powerful items. They had really good inscriptions, so I'm hoping some of this stuff stays how it was. Because for an example, I had a weapon, I believe it was called Rauner's Blaze. Whenever I hit 5 shots on an enemy and it was an assault rifle, I would set them on fire. That was a really, really good inscription to have, or an ability to have on the gun. And then the inscriptions, I believe I had like 27 and 19% damage bonuses, but they weren't just gear specific, they were for javelin, so that would be across the board. I would get an extra 46% damage on my Endless Siege. My Endless Siege also had increased damage. It absolutely shredded enemies on GM3 strongholds and stuff. My javelin was in a very good spot. I run Colossus. So I don't think these exciting moments need to be getting a lot of loot. You just need to get stuff that makes you feel powerful, and you need more content to play to feel powerful in. I don't think their Cataclysm was a very good idea. I didn't mind doing the seasonal content, but I would have rathered new strongholds, new missions, and just different stuff to do in the game. Moving on, they've also said they want to keep it accessible and immediate, so you can reveal and equip loot right away. You wouldn't have to go back to Fort Tarsis, then go into your forge and do it all like that. You can just equip it as soon as you want to, like as soon as you find it. They're completely revamping the equipment sheet, including a detailed stat sheet which hasn't been shown. The equipment sheet can be accessed from anywhere, and it allows you to easily see what you have equipped in each of your slots. They want to basically increase the reliability of equipment and rewards. Each item has an inscription budget based on its power and rarity. There will be no more useless items because they were missing must-have inscriptions. Exceptional items are about getting the exact types of bonuses you want instead of maxing values on every bonus. So they now essentially have a god roll sort of feature, which we will go through in a minute, but the final bullet point is scale for the future. Your power cap can be easily increased and the loot system scales accordingly. Advanced telemetry data allows us to identify trends and make meaningful balance changes. That is something other developers for looter shooters need to fucking pick up on. Yes, I'm talking Division 2. When you find that something is really powerful, don't just nerf it into the ground, make meaningful balance changes. If you're looking at trends within players and you notice nobody's using the M16, don't just leave it doing its own thing, sort that gun out. Make it so players want to use it, or just remove it from the game. If they nail that part of having that advanced data, allowing them to identify the trends, and they make these balance changes for the player, that is already a one-up on other looter shooters. Another thing I forgot to mention earlier on in the video is the fact that we do have Outriders, which is another looter shooter, and I know the setting is putting quite a few players off, especially coming from a more realistic sort of real life based, like human versus human sort of looter shooter, going to fighting creatures and having elements and stuff in there, more of a Destiny feeling than Division or something like that. I know that can put players off, but Outriders is coming out in December. That's going to be competition just based on the fact that it's a looter shooter. If they do it well, it's a lot of fun for players, it's going to be a big hit. So say for example they decided to release this in, I don't know, 8 months time. Let's just say they release it in April of 2021 and Outriders is still doing really good, having released, I believe it's set for December of 2020. 4 months later, that game's still absolutely banging, like people are loving it all over the place, then Anthem's just going to be left in the dust. So they need to get it right. They need to keep the community involved in the loop of what's going on. How long are we going to have to wait? We need like rough sort of timelines, and don't just go saying, oh, it'll be ready in a year, and then it gets to that point of like ready in a year and they say, oh, we need another 6 months. Just say, this is the current stage we're on, this is what we're planning to do. We don't have a rough sort of release time frame, but we could say no longer than 18 months. At the moment, we'll keep you updated and let you know what's going on. A lot of these development companies just need to give their community transparency. You just need to talk to the players and tell them what is going on. One thing that really annoys me is finding out about something literally on the day or the day before. I just want to know a little bit earlier. I'm going to quickly drag it away from looter shooters and say Red Dead Online. I've been playing a lot of that recently. When it comes to their weekly updates on a Tuesday, we don't get the patch notes for the update until about 3 or 4 hours after the update's dropped. Rockstar could do a better job and they could release the patch notes the day before so the players have an idea of what to expect. Just be transparent with your community. But on that note, we're going to move to the images and that's going to wrap the video up. This has been quite a long one, but I'd love Anthem. I really want this to succeed, but I can't see it happening. It looks amazing, but is it going to be? So image number 1, this is the boring one out of the 2, but you can see that they fully updated the UI. You can now see actual categories. You have critical quests, daily contracts, weapons, and power weapons. You can see they're blue and purple. It looks a lot cleaner than anything we've seen in Anthem, but as I said, they showed us Jara's Wrath, they showed us walking walkers. None of that was in the game. The walkers have never been put in to actually walk, and Jara's Wrath was only brought out months and months after release. So is this actually going to be anything like what the final release is going to be? But that's the first image. Moving on to number 2. This one's a lot more juicy than the first one. On the left hand side you can see 248 power, your primary is 2877, your specialty is 2436, your defense is 720. There are no rewards, no skills, but there are skill points there. Like you can see that category, if you hold F or press F you can assign points. But then we have 2 weapons. You have the Sledgehammer, which is an epic light machine gun, 254 power, 88 damage, 50 mag size, 300 RPM. Upgraded Aftershock, which is the ability. Grenade sticks to the enemy. Detonates an area acid effect on a small hit streak. So if you hit a few enemies with it, it's going to detonate an effect of acid that has its own area. It's automatic fire, so they're displaying the fire mode of the gun. You'll see for the glorious result that's burst fire. And then you can see there are 5 boxes, and I'm guessing when that's at the top, there's a little crown next to that one. I'm guessing that's God Roll. So this has 40% thruster duration. So your thrusters on your javelin last 40% longer. You have 5% kinetic damage, that's only 1 bar, so that would potentially go up to 25%. And then you have 10% physical resistance, so that would go up to 50% based on that 1 bar being white instead of greyed out. And then moving over to the glorious result, it's a Masterwork heavy pistol. I mean, this sort of UI does look basic. It's just the fact that you now have the bars. You've got your power on the left side, there's now skill points and rewards and stuff. And I mean, it doesn't have to be visually pleasing. It doesn't look bad. I mean, just as long as the gameplay's fun and they've done enough with it to appeal to the players and the community, the fan base, that's all that really matters. But this glorious result, 262 power, so it's up on the scale, it's higher than what you're currently using. 100 damage, so that's stronger. It's only got a 20 mag size, so that's lower than 450 RPM. Upgraded resolution, fires a forceful 1-2 punch, then demolishes fury. Because it's a Masterwork, they get extra perks and stuff. Hitting 2 enemy weak points quickly increases all weapon damage by 150% for 5 seconds. Then you'll see its burst fire, and then we have just under 3 bars with 119% resupply drop rate. We have 5% ultimate damage, so if that's maxed out, that's 25% extra damage for your ult. And then we have 18% acid resistance, which is 2 bars out of the 5, so 1 bar would be 9%, meaning 5 is 45%. Another thing I've noticed is you have mods just above where it says Sledgehammer, and you've got weapons. So you've got the weapons, and then the mods, I'm guessing that's other stuff on your javelin, like the support gear and things like that. But even though that looks incredibly basic, it does look good. You now have bars, so you're going to know the maximum percentage of the inscriptions you can get. I think it looks really, really cool. You've got equipment, skills, mastery, appearance, store and settings in the tabs at the top. I mean, as I said, it looks amazing. If they can get this to work, it comes out polished, it's going to be really, really fun to play. As long as there's new content, obviously. But at the same time, with the initial launch of Anthem, it was even bricking consoles when it first came out. BioWare have lost a lot of trust, and this is going to be a long, long project that they are working on. So, absolutely no idea of when it's coming out. There's no sort of roadmap as to where they are in the development. We're literally just getting quarterly updates on it. It is obviously better than hearing no news about it at all. But what I'm going to do is leave the video there. It's been a lot longer than I originally anticipated, but I wanted to go through this in depth. As I said, I love Anthem, but I have no reason, no motivation to play it because there's no new content at all. It's literally the same stuff I've done. I've got some of the best gear in the game, and they're not going to do anything with the game until they start releasing this stuff. But let me know your thoughts and stuff in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.